you have to give Vince McMahon a lot of credit just for the pandemic alone. It's no way that you could argue that Vince McMahon saved professional wrestling during the pandemic. How could you argue it? Not only did Vince McMahon continue to run shows during the pandemic, but this is when Roman Reigns started his legendary title run. This is when Vince McMahon decided to pull the trigger, and he executed one of the greatest runs in modern era. This is something that people have to give Vince a lot of credit for. We all on Vince and some of the decisions that he made, because a lot of them were questionable. But in the grand scheme of things, you are also seeing some of the best storylines that we've seen, whether it was Roman Reigns or it was the Hurt Business. You were seeing stars being made, and you were seeing storylines being crafted to perfection. And how many times can you use that word in professional wrestling? Perfection. The only time that I remember even being able to use such a word in wrestling is when Vince McMahon was running things. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time with this today, but it's something that I definitely wanted to point out, because I think right now it's being shown that those shoes were too big to fill. But I want to point out a couple more things that I was thoroughly impressed with when it comes to Vince McMahon. And that is, coming out of the pandemic, we got WrestleMania 37. And every WrestleMania since then that Vince McMahon was a part of has been a great WrestleMania. Not a good WrestleMania, a great WrestleMania. WrestleMania 37 was a low-key classic, and I recommend all wrestling fans to go back and watch it. Just the opening segments of WrestleMania 37. This is coming out of the pandemic. Matter of fact, the pandemic wasn't even over. Vince McMahon was just ready to move on, and he was ready to bring WrestleMania back. After WrestleMania 36 being a disaster. And it's not Vince McMahon's fault. The pandemic killed WrestleMania 36. And being the type of competitor that Vince McMahon is, he made sure that he hit a home run, had a slam dunk, and scored a touchdown in the same game. He made sure that WrestleMania 37 made up for everything that happened a year prior. Just the energy as they opened WrestleMania 37. All of the superstars took the stage, with Vince McMahon being at the center. You saw what it meant to them to be back in front of a big crowd. And then you had to commend all of those competitors for competing in an arena. I mean, think about that. For the past year, they had been wrestling under confinement, meaning that you couldn't allow fans to be in attendance in any type of way. They've been in the training facility with no physical crowd. And just like that, now you have to compete in front of 50,000 plus. That had to be a hell of an adjustment to make so quickly. To go from 0 to 50,000 plus, just like that. Vince McMahon has made history, but even in recent times, he's made history in front of the world. Stone Cold Steve Austin had a podcast where he would interview the different wrestlers, and he had an episode where he interviewed Vince McMahon. And he asked Vince about Jim Ross, and he was asking if it was ever a chance that they could work together again. But I love the line that Stone Cold said. He said that between Jim Ross and Vince McMahon, that it was not another person in the world that knew more about professional wrestling. And I tend to agree with that. And I thought that was a great statement to make. I see why Vince McMahon dominated professional wrestling for all of these decades. Not years, decades. Why Vince McMahon has put so many other wrestling promotions out of business. Vince McMahon has pretty much conquered professional wrestling. For all of my Marvel fans that are fans of Kane the Conqueror, Vince McMahon is a conqueror, like Kane. He's conquered every timeline in the world of professional wrestling. AEW itself could probably be out of business right now if Vince McMahon was still in control of the WWE. Because it's been times where the WWE has really shown dominance over AEW. The WWE just doesn't have their closer. Let's keep it on the pandemic. He doesn't get credit for the Thunderdome. Let's keep it all the way real. Other sports didn't start up until they seen Vince McMahon continue to run his wrestling shows. The whole idea of the Thunderdome inspired the NBA to do something similar. And other sports follow suit as well. Vince McMahon doesn't even get credit for being innovative and a visionary. Not Seth Rollins, Vince McMahon. That's the true visionary. Again, I'm not here to cheerlead for the man, but at the same time, I'm always inspired by the best that ever do it. In any field, in any genre, in any sport. When it comes to this sport of professional wrestling, Vince McMahon is the king. Let's look at this whole scenario with Cody Rhodes. We talked about him in the last segment and him being chosen to be the guy to take the title from Roman Reigns during that legendary run. Vince McMahon is the person that sought after Cody Rhodes and chose him to be the one. So as much as people love Cody Rhodes and they ready to ride and die for Cody, Vince McMahon is the one that made that happen. Kevin Owens made a statement and said that Vince McMahon actually flew out to meet Cody to convince Cody to come to the WWE. And he took it upon himself to go recruit the replacement for Roman Reigns. Even that, in my opinion, has to be applauded. As much as people say that Vince McMahon is out of tune with wrestling, he gave you one of the best champions that we've had in this era with Roman Reigns. And then Vince McMahon directly picked the replacement in Cody Rhodes. I don't agree with Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns for the title. As I said earlier, Roman Reigns should have kept the title. But for all of the people that wanted to see Cody finish his story, Vince McMahon wrote the story. All I'm saying is let's not forget that, because the direction we heading in now in current WWE, I don't know what story they trying to tell. The only story that they telling me is that we need Vince McMahon back in the WWE.